Well, I kind of touched on the fact that a few minutes ago, just about how they were pursuing their passion, but kind of digging into that, it's because it's almost like for them, everything else follows on from the passion, and they, using the perspective of, say, Stephen Pressfield, The War of Art, he was writing for 20 years or something before he even sold his first bit of writing. And he was writing like every day for 20 years or so. Like, that's a dedication to the craft. And he does talk about, the idea of the artist versus the professional, and how you want to actually be the professional, not the kind of aloof amateur, which, and what he means is basically show up every day. But he was showing up every day for the thing that he wanted to do every day. And the only reason he was able to do that for 20 years is because he had so much energy behind him to do that for the 20 years. So
it's an extreme example. Like, do you think as career advice, follow your passion is good advice?
I think so. Now, it's not to say that you find the most niche thing that kind of impassions you, but I think if you steer yourself in the direction towards the things that resonate more with you, there's things that just can't stand doing that other people love doing. For example, I'm trying to pluck something out. Like, I'm not a fan of writing letters. I don't know. Whereas I'm sure there's people that love to write letters, and so that's if that's the case, then I'm less inclined to go into a job where I have to write letters, versus someone who really enjoys writing letters might find themselves a career path that's more aligned with that. There's people that might be passionate about environmental things. And so, if you can steer yourself towards, not even necessarily like, if you haven't got the opportunity to jump into an organization that is purely about environmental good, then maybe it's an organization that sees that as a core value, and then you can kind of champion something internally, So it's like steering in the direction of, and because it becomes like a stepping stone. And I think but to like jump off the cliff and completely cut everything else off and kind of dive into it, which is a very... Have you seen the documentary on Van Gogh?
No.
Yeah, like that's intense. It felt very intense. He was just, he was
like an intense guy.
Yeah, he's a very intense guy. But he was doing nothing but his craft for no care for, the realities of, kind of the world around him. It was all for the pursuit of that passion. Now, if that's what you want to do, I think that's fine. But, if you need to, like, I guess, so he wasn't able to support a family, for example. So if you want to have a family, then you need to be able to support a family. And so you can't be living on, a couple of bits of bread and some cheese, maybe, or whatever he was doing to get himself by. So yeah, it depends on the kind of the life you wanted to lead. But I think the fact is, if you are obsessed with, say, building things, then move into something that's more aligned with, say, construction or architecture or something in the physical world. And so I think use it as a compass.
Yeah, I think that's quite sound. I think the idea of follow your passion, just said like that, is quite, like, it's simplistic. It's too simplistic. So it's got elements of truth to it, but it doesn't quite, it wouldn't be good advice on its own, It's not super pragmatic. It's a bit idealistic. But and like Stephen Pressfield's an extreme example probably, but also he worked a bunch of other jobs to get him in the position to do what he loved. So it's not like he quit everything and said, look, I'm just going to sit around writing until this happens and starve to death, Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think you've kind of summarized that quite well. But there's something in it, but you've got to be content with the outcomes that you're likely to get from what you do as well. So.
Yeah, and because
sometimes
someone
it's okay to have a hobby too. Like, it doesn't have to be your job. Sometimes it can ruin things, you know.
Totally. I think there's something that gets spoken about a lot, which is like, it's actually this was definitely in Shoe Dog, which we haven't discussed yet, but it was, know when to quit. And it's not, and that might sound a little bit kind of, like you're giving yourself an excuse, but the way it gets framed in Shoe Dog, it's absolutely not about, just when things get hard, because I guess what you go through when you listen to the story of Nike is anything but easy. I think they had plenty of opportunities to can it.
Yeah, so that's a really good myth-breaking story, that one, and I'm looking forward to talking about it on one of our upcoming episodes.
The one thing... Oh, sorry, mate.
Have you got some last comments before we move on? Yeah,
just the other thing to bear in mind, though, is if you've got the person... If you're side by side with, I use the example of letter writing. I don't even know where that came from, but let's get going with it. If you've got the person that loves to write letters and just that's what gets them up in the morning, gets them going, versus the person who just can't stand writing letters. Even if, across a period of time, even if that benefit that the person gets for the extra energy and passion that they have is 5%, it's definitely not 5%. Like, it's a lot more than 5%, but let's say it's 5%. That compounds across years. And so, if you've been in a job of letter writing for 5 years and absolutely love it versus someone who doesn't, you're going to be paying compounded dividends in terms of both your fulfillment and in terms of what you're able to do with it, where you're able to take it.
It's a great way of thinking about it, again, across that period of time. So I guess when we've travelled down that path at the end, we're probably starting those journeys for ourselves. We'll know what the real answer is.
That's it.